All right, so here I am sitting down with The Curse of Cash by Kenneth Rogoff, Professor Rogoff. So there's been a lot of mention of this book here on the mainstream media, kind of pushing for the whole cashless move and getting rid of cash. So I thought I would take a minute and basically go cover to cover, thumb through the book and get a chance to see what exactly his argument is on why it's important, or why, central banks should begin phasing out cash. And just reading some of the back of it, some of the reviews from other authors, touting this as being a great work and it's a great idea type of thing. And so we have the author of The Banker's New Clothes, What's Wrong with Banking and What to Do About It. He says, in this fascinating and important book, Rogoff argues forcefully that advanced economies should phase out cash because it facilitates crime and constrains policy. With a wealth of data and clear explanation, the book demystifies central banking and negative interest rates, thus elevating the discussion of both. Yeah, so they're trying to, lay out an argument that why it's time to get rid of cash and limit more of our freedom. So anyway, but without trying to, give my viewpoint, I'll just give you what's in the book, cover to cover. We'll thumb through it and let you be the judge of what you see inside. So just inside the cover, The Curse of Cash, Kenneth Rogoff. The world is now drowning in cash, as he says. It's making us poorer and less safe. In The Curse of Cash, Kenneth Rogoff, one of the world's leading economists, makes a persuasive and fascinating case for an idea that until recently would have seemed outlandish: getting rid of our most paper money. Even as people in advanced economies are using less paper money, there is more cash in circulation, a record 1.4 trillion in US dollars alone, or 4,200 for every American citizen, mostly in $100 bills. The United States is hardly an exception. So what is all this cash being used for? The answer is simple. A large part is feeding tax evasion, corruption, terrorism, and the drug trade, human trafficking, and the rest of a massive global underground economy. So it looks like they're already setting us up for the idea that the $100 bill is a bad thing, even though it came from, central banking, banking elite, class themselves. As Rogoff shows, paper money can also cripple monetary policy. Cripple? How about restrain excessive debt and money printing? In the aftermath of the recent financial crisis, central banks have been unable to stimulate growth, inflation, by cutting interest rates significantly below zero for the fear that it will drive investors to abandon treasury bills and stockpile cash. Well, duh. Anyway, so this book is already lighting a couple fires, so let me go ahead and thumb through this thing and let you be the judge of what he's saying here. So basically, here's the contents here. It's broken down into three parts. Part one, the dark side of paper currency: tax, regulatory evasion, crime, and security issues. Chapter two talks about the early development of coins and paper currency. Chapter three, size and consumption of global currencies, holdings of currency in the domestic legal tax-paying economy. Chapter 5, currency demand in the underground economy. Chapter 6, seigniorage. Chapter 7, a plan for phasing out of paper money. So he lays it all out right there in part 1. Part 2, he gets into negative interest rates and says the cost of zero-bound constraint, the higher inflation targets, nominal GDP, escape clauses, and fiscal policy. Then we have Chapter 10, other paths to negative interest rates. Chapter 11, other possible downsides to negative policy rates. Chapter 12, negative interest rates as a violation of trust and a step away from rule-based systems. So already just in the contents, he talks about, the dark side of cash, how getting rid of cash is pretty important in order to have negative rates, because if you have negative rates, people are going to want to hold cash. So that right there plays into the idea of getting rid of it, so people can't hold it and protect themselves from, their own leadership. Part 3, international dimensions and digital currencies. So he's going to phase out cash when they go negative and implement a digital currency backed by and controlled by the same ones that take away the cash. So that kind of seems like what's going on here. And so the last one, chapter 14, digital currencies and gold. So already I'm not really feeling this book, but I kind of knew that before I picked it up. But still thought it'd be worth to thumb through it and see exactly what his argument is directly. So a little preface here. Curse of Cash, introduction and overview. I'll try to read through some of it, but I'm sure he lays out his argument in some form of using history, because I saw some things here about 1933, 1936, general theory, What else we got here? It says organizing a book around a theme that touches on so many diverse topics has been a formidable challenge, especially if one wants to take seriously both the practical and philosophical concerns raised by phasing out paper currency. I've tried to design a structure that makes it easy for the reader to navigate directly to a specific topic she or he is interested in, or simply read the entire book straight through. A lot of the material, particularly citations, has been put into endnotes. These do not necessarily need to be read in detail on a first pass. There are a few also topics that seem a bit too technical for the text. These have been gained in a short appendix. So he's saying how it was very hard to try to convince people that cash is no longer good for them, but I did my best, or I'm doing my best. Chapter 6 explores a fundamental plus for paper currency, which is the considerable income governments earn from exercising their monopoly. It looks at different measures of profits from paper currency and develops estimates of how much would be lost if substantial share of the demand migrated to electronic payments. Chapter 7, the final chapter in Part 1, contains a concrete plan for phasing out paper currency up to small notes and coins. The long timeline is intended to give people and institutions time to adjust and to help policymakers navigate unforeseen problems. An important general principle is that an ideal system would create obstacles too large and repeated anonymous transactions, but not too small ones. Part 2 of this book deals with the negative interest rates. As I already noted, it is hard to seriously study phasing out paper currency, without recognizing the policy that it could fundamentally impact. Central bank policy. Chapter 8 also details some of the efforts central banks have undertaken to mitigate the zero bound without appealing to negative rates. Zero bound. Chapter 10 takes an alternative approach to allowing for negative interest rate policy without phasing out paper currency. So he looks like he plays through several different scenarios here as to justifying why paper should be and will be faded out, and how negative interest rates or zero interest rates will remain for a while. So that's the dark side. As we get into that, here's a little bit of history. Looks like early coinage. Thumb through it fast. Selected peak debasement years for European coinage from 1300 to 1812. Talks about Austria. In 1812 was a 55% decline in silver content. So he tucks on the monetary history dealing with metals. And that's Belgium, England, a couple times France, Germany. So, goes through the history on how they've debased currency. The birth of paper currency in China. What else we got here? A little graph here. Paper money printing and rise prices in the Yuan dynasty. So he lists is how the monetary base basically just inflated to astronomical prices within looks like about a less than 100-year stint. So it kind of looks like the Federal Reserve for the most part. Ben Franklin and paper currency in the colonial states. So goes through the history there. From gold back to pure fiat paper currency. Touches on how we got to where we're at now. In chapter 3, global currency supplies and share held abroad. The massive quantities of cash circulating. So gets into the yen, looks like. So yeah, he covers all the paper worldwide. So here we have U.S. currency GDP from 1948 to 2015. And so here we have the $100 bills have increased them as far as in circulation, as well as the current held by public GDP. So, little trend there. So, he lists a couple different graphs here. But as always, without reading the book, you won't have a full understanding. But the goal is just to give you a look through it to see if it's something that you may be interested in reading for yourself. So, here we have looks like currency to GDP ratio as of 2015. So, Norway. Currency to GDP is 1.45%. In Japan, it's 18.61. The U.S. is in between at 7.38. So 7.38% of currency is in circulation in our GDP, in our gross domestic product. So here we have Argentina, 88.3%. So yeah, he does definitely list some interesting graphs that makes you wonder about all the problems happening around the world. And of course, there's a big push on cash being removed with everything happening in India and Venezuela, and probably Australia pretty soon with the $100 note there being removed. So more graphs. Holdings of currency. Here we have how much currency do businesses and banks hold. So we asked a couple good questions here. United States, two important sources of data on U.S. consumer cash holdings are the Survey of Consumer Payment Choice and the Diary of Consumer Payment Choice. The first is the annual survey conducted by the Federal Reserve that makes use of the RAND Corporation's American Life Panel survey respondents. The second is a consumer diary project where consumers are asked to keep diaries, something akin to the Nelson Diaries for rating TV shows. So I learned something right then and there myself, how they, measure for, the U.S. consumer cash holdings. So definitely, learned a little bit myself. Anyway, thumbing through Europe and Canada, where we have cash usage in legal domestic economy. Okay, so here we have another chart and graph or whatever. Zoom in a little bit so you can see it. So yeah, definitely he lays it out, his argument out very well with some graphs, and it's interesting how all the countries, Turkey, Greece, Italy, all those outside of the United States are, have some very high percentages, whatever he's trying to prove. So yeah, so here's what this is, the book in a nutshell, what's going on here. Human trafficking, human smuggling. Sure, cash in hand plays into that very well. So illegal immigration, counterfeiting, terrorism, some mention must be made about counterfeiting. With the U.S. Secret Service was founded in 1865, its main job was to fight counterfeiting. At the time, between 1/3 to 1/2 of the U.S. money supply was counterfeit. By 2011, according to U.S. Treasury, less than 0.01% of all U.S. currency was counterfeit. The 2012 Federal Reserve study supports this claim. So yeah, because of counterfeiting, it's time to get rid of cash. Public health, so yeah, seigniorage. So yeah, more information, more graphs, more charts. Cost of substituting interest-bearing debt for paper currency. If a government fully phases out paper currency, there is a sense in which it will have to forego both monetary seigniorage as well as opportunity cost seigniorage. Obviously, it forgoes monetary because they won't be printing fresh currency anymore. So they'll basically, government will miss out on earning money from printing money. So, yeah. The political economy importance of seigniorage. The plan of phasing out most paper currency. Here's this plan here. It says a long run without paper currency. Phasing out, here's number one. Phasing out paper currency. All paper currency is gradually phased out, beginning with all notes of 50 and more. Then next, the 20 bill, leaving only 1s, 5s, and 10s. These small bills would be left circulation for an indefinite period. In the final phase, small bills would be replaced by equivalent denomination coins of substantial weight. So giving people coins, and of course, I'm sure those coins won't be comprised of any precious metal. They'll be, what they are now, clad tokens for the most part. Here's step 2, universal financial inclusion. The government provides all individuals with option of access to free basic function debit cards, smartphone accounts, either through banks or through a governmental option. This can be substantially implemented by making government transfer payments into the debit account after it is created. And then here's for privacy. Regulatory and legal framework aims to discourage other means of making large-scale payments that can be completely hidden from the government. So the goal is, in all these phases, to make sure that nothing's withheld, nothing cannot be seen by the government. And then it says real-time clearing. This is a technical point, but an important one. Government helps facilitate development of its rails of the payment infrastructure to achieve real-time clearing for most transactions. We discuss each item in turn. So these are his four kind of his phases for phasing out paper currency. Then he gets into it further back here. So universal financial inclusion, piracy. So yeah, so he goes on and on. So all in all, this is what's happening inside this book here. I wanted to keep this relatively shorter, but definitely he does his best to lay out a good point for going cashless, and it looks like it may be working because a lot of countries are phasing out currency in accordance to his little order here. So obviously this book is probably afterthought to something that was already planned, but this is the book itself, Quantitative Easing. He has a lot of footnotes in here, more graphs and things like that. So this is a quick thumb through, cover to cover, give you an idea of what's in this book, and to help you see if it's something that might be interesting. Here we have the QE. quantitative easing and escaping zero-bound sand trap. So, yeah, at the end of the day, in my opinion, none of this is good for you and I. It was meant to, take away what belongs to us and to basically put other people's hands and pockets in our lives even more. So anyway, hope you enjoy this. Leave me a comment below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoy this, and also share it to help other people become more aware of subject matters such as this. And leave a comment, and love to hear your thoughts. Thanks.